Hey everyone, this is Simon again, and this is part 3 of Decoding Relationships. And I know it's been a while since I posted last, but in this video, I'm going to share with you everything I've promised from the last ones, including soulmate connections, including things to watch out for, and a sort of a jump start. What do you call it? A crash course, a boot camp into the things to look for between two charts in order to spot true soulmate bliss connections and which ones are not. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is, this is a sort of a syllabus for today. Now, this is going to become a 2 or 3 hour class if I go into detail in all of these. In fact, it's going to become a multi-day class. And before I get started, I do want to tell you that I have a 12-week Decoding Relationships program that covers absolutely everything, including modern methods, ancient methods. In fact, I'll show you here. This is from my website. You can go on the website and check it out. Go to spirittype.com. and you'll see this this link. You can click on it. It will take you here. And this is, in my opinion, the definitive course on relationship compatibility, because it covers both Western and Vedic. It covers what I think are the best features of Western and some of the best features of Vedic astrology, including some of the things that I'm going to introduce you here to today, and a lot more. Things like KP and parallels and prosperity indicators and sexual chemistry, which is a must if in modern day, if you're going to be consulting clients or for yourself. Deal makers, deal breakers, how to spot if divorce is going to happen and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm not going to toot my own horn here too long, but I do want to tell you this is available. Okay, and for what you get, it's I think it's a pretty good deal. It's $297. It's a full 12 weeks. You get the classes recorded, and you get to come into my professional level class, which is ongoing right now. So people who have taken the 12-week are now continuing into really getting into how to consult with a client who has maybe a difficult chart, or two clients who have a difficult. What do you say? You just say, "Oh, this is bad"? No, obviously there are ways to help clients work with and make the best of what they have. All right, so without much further ado, let's get into what are the factors leading to relationship bliss. Wow, that's a big statement. One of the first is this: there has to be a presence. Well, actually, before I get into that, when you look at two charts, whether using Western astrology or Vedic astrology, what you want to look at is there affinity? Does this person's chart sort of match with the other person's chart? Like, let's say this person has Moon-Mars combination. Does the other person have a Moon-Mars thing going on? This person has a very prominent Jupiter. Does the other? Are there similarities? Are there affinities? And one of the ways to judge affinities is when two charts have close conjunctions. I'm not going to use a lot of examples today because I want to go through this quickly, but I will show you one example of these two. For modern people, you probably don't know them, but they are the Hollywood couple because they stayed together 50 years and they were both superstars, right? So imagine, I don't know, Brad and Angie staying together 50 years. That this was kind of like that, except unlike Brad and Angie, these two, Paul Newman and Joan Woodward, were incredibly well matched. And one of the ways you see that is, let's put my mug right here, is they have two very powerful close conjunctions. So first of all, his ascendant, and I'm going to use the North Indian, but here's the South Indian, you can see it just as well. His ascendant, okay, at 20 degrees Sagittarius, very closely matches her ascendant at 19 degrees Sagittarius. Okay, this is a very powerful affinity, and don't listen to people who tell you, oh, same, it's going to be boring. No, it's not like that. The second thing is when the moons And in fact, this is the primary, the moons being together. Look at his moon at 9 degrees and her moon at 2 degrees. They're only 7 degrees apart in the same sign. This is a powerful, powerful connection, twofold, okay? So this is an example of conjunctions. Primarily look at conjunctions between the moon and secondarily between the ascendant, okay? When you see that, and the closer the conjunction, you know, typically the better. Now, in certain Vedic techniques, that kind of conjunction is not desirable, but that's a separate system that we'll look at later and that we do look at in the course. All right, so the second thing is to look at a good core connection. Now, core connection is what I call the one person's sun to the other person's sun, one person's moon to the other, which we just looked at, Venus to Venus and Lagna to Lagna. So we looked at the Lagnas of these two, but also you can add Venus to Sun. Now, what is a good core connection? If they are in the same sign, 1-1. If they're trine to each other, 5-9. If they are sextile to each other in a 3-11 relationship, or if they're opposite each other. Okay, so those are the good ones. And the closer they are in degrees, the more powerful the connection. So in the previous example, their lagnas were 2 degrees apart or 1 degree apart. Their moons were 7 degrees apart. So that 2 degrees apart lagna is going to be a more powerful connection because it's tighter. So if one couple has their moons, say they're 5-9, but they're 29 degrees apart, it's not much of a connection. But if the other couple has 5-9 and they're 2 degrees apart, that's a much more powerful connection. So you do want to pay attention to degrees, okay? So a good core connection, that means all 4 of these pairs, Sun, Moon, Venus, and Lagna, ideally speaking, should be positive, right? Now, in very few charts will you see all 4 of these positive. And in fact, most charts will have at least one of the negative aspects. But even with one negative aspect, it's fine. Let's take a look at this golden couple again. We saw that their lagnas are 1-1. Their moons are 1-1, meaning in the same sign. What about their suns? Well, his sun is in Capricorn and her sun is in Aquarius. So they are in fact 2-12. So they have one of these undesirable connections, okay? And what about their Venuses? Well, his Venus at 21 degrees here is 3-11 to her Venus at 20 degrees. Look at how powerful that is, okay? His Venus is here at 21. They are sextile, that's the Western term, in exact aspect. Again, so romantically, Venus rules how you express love. And so romantically, they're going to be very much in tune. He brings red flowers, she loves red flowers. He takes her to Italian, she loves Italian. You know, she does this for him, he loves that. Rather than if their Venuses were, say, 6-8. Let's say his Venus were here, okay, at 20 degrees. Now, that closeness of degree breeds antipathy, breeds hatred. Why? Because they're in a 6-8 relationship. 6-8 means that's how you stand when you face an enemy. You don't stand directly in front of them so they can hit you. You stand a little off, right? Like a boxer. That's the 6-8 relationship, which is highly undesirable. And so he brings red flowers. She hates red flowers. She cooks Italian. He's allergic to pasta, right? He's gluten intolerant. And just the romantic things that you try to do don't work out. That's a 6-8 relationship. So now having one, if you're a couple or if you're looking at a potential couple and you have a 6-8 between, say, your suns or your Venuses or your moon, it's not a deal breaker by itself. But because there are other things to factor in, like are the lords of the signs mutually friendly or inimical? So in the case of 6-8 between Venus in Cancer and Venus in Aquarius, now the Lord of Aquarius is Saturn, the Lord of Cancer is Moon, and they hate each other. So not only are the Venuses in an inimical relationship themselves, their rulers also hate each other. So this is a very bad 6-8. But if his Venus were here, making another 6-8 relationship, right? Hers is 6 and his is 8 away. But now the ruler of that sign is Mercury, and the ruler of this sign is Saturn. Mercury and Saturn are pretty friendly, okay? So that 6-8 is going to be workable. And this is when you get to the professional level and you look at how to determine which 6-8, which 4-10, which aspect that seems bad can be worked with and how it can be worked with. In this case, with Mercury being the ruler, communication is good. Talking and counseling and so on. Saturn being there, mutual tasks and so on. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But the point here is a good core connection is one of the ways you can find strong affinity, and it's one indicator of very strong relationship, okay? And if you have questions about this, you can, really the questions are answered in my course. I don't want to say you can email me because I'm going to get 500 emails of, well, I've got this, and, she's got that. Can you tell me in, 8 paragraphs or more, specifically what I should do? I don't answer emails like that, sorry. Because I do get about 200-300 emails a day. A lot of them are spam, but a lot of them are questions like this. Anyway, so good core connection. We covered this. Next is something that we borrow from Western astrology, and this is something that a psychologist, Carl Jung, studied, and other astrologers studied after him. They took 500-600 couples, which is over 1,000 people, successful couples. And in those couples, they found an inordinate amount of them had one of these soulmate connections, okay? Now, what do we mean by that? A Moon-Mars conjunction, okay, where Mars is conjunct Moon less than 6 degrees or so, okay? So we want a tight conjunction. So this is going to be pretty rare. A lot of people are going to have Moon-Mars in the same sign, and that counts. But when it's about 7, let's say 7 degrees or less, okay, you can twist my arm, 8 degrees, okay, 8 degrees. It's in increasing order of magnitude. The tighter it is, the stronger it is. So within 1 or 2 degrees, these people are going to get married. Okay, it's going to happen. Moon-Mars is a strong marriage indicator. And it's about as strong as the Sun-Moon connection. Sun-Moon is when one person's sun is conjunct the other person's moon or opposite. So the Moon-Mars, you don't want them opposite because there's going to be a lot of fighting. When they're conjunct, it seems to work better than when they're opposite. But okay, let me clarify. Moon-Mars together, conjunct, is best. Moon-Mars opposite can still work as a soulmate connection, but it's going to create a lot of throwing plates from time to time, right? And then making up. So it's going to be that kind of passionate relationship. So the preferred is the conjunction. Sun-Moon, you can have the conjunction or the opposition, all right? So let's see what those two look like. So these are two powerful soulmate indicators. So let's look at our Hollywood couple. And we saw that, let's look at her sun. Her sun is in Aquarius at 15 degrees. If we transpose that to his chart, look at what happens. Her sun falls on his moon within, 6 degrees? 6 degrees or less. There's another soulmate connection. Folks, relationships that look like a fairy tale, that look like, a Disney movie, they are not by accident. You can say that these people have worked many lifetimes to come up with a relationship that is this solid. They've had many lifetimes where they've, been at it. This isn't accidental. And also you can see that it finds its purpose, its explanation in their charts. You can see it. So there's one soulmate connection. Now, does his sun go to her moon? Well, here's his sun at 13. No, his sun is here. So there, it only happens one way, her sun to his moon, but that's enough, guys. That's plenty. What about moon Mars? Well, his Mars is here, so no connection, and her Mars is here on his sun. What they do have is a Mars-Sun exchange, or a Mars-Sun on each other. But no, that we're not going to use that. That is significant, though. So we have the sun to the moon and no moon to Mars. Okay. All right, moving on. Moving on, we have other connections. By other connections, I mean things like sun to Venus, sun to ascendant or lagna, and Venus to lagna. In my compatibility protocol, I have these listed as soulmate connections. I would only count these as deal makers if they're very tight, if they're 5 degrees or less. Okay, so one person's sun to the other's Venus, one person's sun to the other's lagna. Actually, I would include lagna and descendant, 7th house cusp. If my sun falls on your 7th house cusp, that is powerful activation of your 7th house cusp is who your ideal person is, in a sense, like who you're bound to marry or be with. If my sun or Venus falls on your 7th house cusp, like I fulfill those criteria, and vice versa. Okay. So connection to the ascendant, descendant, and here we can say the same. Ascendant, descendant. So let's see if our example couple has this. We'll go through this quickly. So his Venus at 21 degrees of the ascendant falls within 3 of her ascendant. There it is, Venus. So they have that connection. There's one of them. Well, the more you do this, the more you'll see how rare this actually is. Her Venus at 20 degrees falls here, which is on his moon, but not on his ascendant. Okay, so we don't have that. What else did I say? Sun to moon we did. I think that's it among these connections. Now, of course, there's other things going on here. You can see his Jupiter is also right on her lagna, so he's a good influence. That's very nice to have, and it certainly helps a lot. But it's on a second tier of influence. Okay. Well, in his Pluto, now this is getting to another point which is further down, which is the outer planets, which I call the karmic glue. Okay, his Pluto. So the karmic, I might as well go here. The karmic glue, which is 0.4, we'll get to 0.3 here, is another way to see if two people are fated to be together. And I've covered that a little bit in a previous class with Rahu Ketu. The way when someone thinks of something that's fated, you think it's beyond my control. And that's what these outer planets do. They feel like they push you and you can't help but love that person. You can't help but be sexually attracted to that person. You can't help but be fascinated by that person, mystified, pulled and drawn almost against your will to that other person. How do we see that? When Rahu, Ketu, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, the outer planets, touch the other person's inner planets, Sun, Moon, Venus, and Lagna. So in this example, Paul Newman's Pluto at 19 touches is exactly opposite her ascendant at 19. That's opposite the Lagna. Okay. In my course, I go into all the possible ways that this can happen. Now, I'll just give you a little clue here. Don't go more than 12 degrees orb, okay? Because then you get very confused. 12 degrees or less orb on all of these, and better is 7 degrees, right? 7 degrees or less. And I'm not going to look at the karmic glue score because it's going to take a little bit to work through it. But Pluto on the opposite her ascendant is one indicator. Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at the one I skipped, which is a strong, good Ashtakuta score. Ashtakuta is the ancient Vedic system of matching charts based on 8 factors. Ashta 8. Kuta is points. So they are in increasing order of magnitude, and they work, folks. They work. Ideally, what you want is a strong Ashtakuta score and a strong modern method score. I call what we're doing here the modern methods, right? Comparing Moon and Mars and all that stuff. So for what it's worth, this couple has 33 out of 36 Ashtakuta. Okay, so those of you who work with Vedic astrology and matching know that this is ridiculously high. The bar is anything above 18 is good. Anything above 18 is good. If you're in the 20s, you're doing good. Like 24, 25, your marriage material, lifelong marriage material. If you're in the 30s, unheard of. So this couple has 33 out of 36. So what I like to say is that you want to have a good Ashtakuta score matched with a good, the rest of these techniques, and that's how you find a couple for love. That's relationship bliss. Folks, this is hard to find, and hopefully one day there will be an app that matches you with people, and you can immediately see your Ashtakuta score, right? When you pull their profile and their pictures, below it'll automatically generate your score, Ashtakuta, and give you any soulmate connections and stuff that you have. How cool would that be, right? No more going on dates that end in nothing and wasting time and money and all that. Anyway, it's possible. All right, so we talked about strong karmic glue, good Ashtakuta, and finally, you want to have an absence of dosha. A dosha means a blemish or a flaw. And in Ayurveda, there are 3 doshas, 3 blemishes, 3 flaws that we are constantly juggling to keep in balance. Because if we don't, they all go crazy and start taking control. Well, in relationship counseling, there are 3 doshas. One of them is called the Nadi dosha. Now, Nadi is actually part of the Ashtakuta technique. Now, some people include it, some don't, but the way I learned it, it's part of the Ashtakuta. And so Nadi is perhaps the most important kuta, which matches people based on their doshas, based on their prakriti, their mind-body constitution. So 2 people who have the same constitution are said to be incompatible. And incompatible for what? Mainly health reasons. So if you have Nadi dosha, meaning you're both Vata, you're both Pitta, or you're both Kapha, then this is a deal breaker, okay? Now, you can have Nadi dosha, and if you have, strong Ashtakuta score otherwise, and the rest is good, your relationship will still be fine, but there will be some issues, okay? And, in my course, we talk about how to address a lot of these. So Nadi dosha is one. Then Rajju. Rajju means a rope, and it talks about a kind of, what do you call it? Like a compulsive connection where there's things go wrong between you, and yet you feel tied to be in the relationship. It's kind of a nasty thing to have, especially if you don't have the antidote to it. And again, I don't want to harp on this, but we do talk about what the antidotes are and how to score Rajju dosha in the class. But there's a lot of material out there for free where you can find if you have Rajju and how strong it is in your chart. But Rajju tends to create codependent relationships. It makes you tied. And codependency is like you hate the other person, but you kind of dependent on them, and you want to get out, but you can't for some reason, and it's an ugly situation. Okay, Veda is similar to Raju, but it's even worse. Okay, and it's very rare. It's hard to see this, but if you see it, you want to run the other way. And the final dosha is a Mangala dosha imbalance, which means if one person has a lot of Mars energy, that is Mars in the first, second, fourth, seventh, and eighth house from the Lagna, the Moon, or Venus. So you count all three and find out how many times there's Mangala dosha. And if the other person doesn't have that, let's say their Mars is not in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 12 in the 12th house from the Lagna, Moon, or Venus, then you have an imbalance. One person has too much Mars and the other person doesn't have enough. And what will happen is the very Mars person will feel like the other person is not invested in the relationship. And so what you want to do is find someone that has an equal amount of Mangala dosha. If you have none, find someone that has none. If you have a little, find someone that has a little. If you have a lot, then you're only going to get along with someone who also has a lot. And also you probably shouldn't marry before age 30. Okay, that's when Mangala dosha sort of eases off. Before age 30, you marry, you're likely going to get divorced, or there's going to be a lot of broken plates and windows in your house if you have strong Mangala dosha. So Mangala dosha means a prominent Mars. You want to find someone who has it more or less equally prominent to you, so you both feel you're invested in the relationship equally. Okay? So these are the keys, in my mind, some of the keys to blissful relationships. These are, you know, if you don't have these, you don't have it. If you have some of these, you're good. And if you have a lot of these, then that's it. You found the one. So again, if you have any questions, don't email me. Watch the video or maybe leave a comment below. And I'll, you know, if it's a good question, I'll make another video accordingly. And again, my protocol is up on the website, spirittype.com. And I hope to see you guys there. It's not a live course, but I'm teaching the live course at the moment, the professional level. But I do have a special soft spot for students. Students for me always come first before, you know, the general public. So if you are a student of this or one of my other courses, you can always email me and I'll try to reply quickly. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next time. Bye.